Welcome back, everyone. We are two dudes. Yes, that's two. Two dudes talking 80s. Two. Mention one. Yes, that's us. That was an 80s commercial, wasn't it?
If you say so.
All right, cool. I'm saying so. Anyway, I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis. Hopefully he's over there. He's over there on my screen right now. What's going on, Lewis?
Hello.
Yeah, I didn't do your intro or anything today, so it's all good, right?
Absolutely.
He got really upset and threatened me with physical violence, so I've had to put a cease and desist letter out on him. So we're gonna try and make this work.
Yes, 5'3" little me is threatening 6 foot something little you who could crush me under your foot. Yep.
All right. Well, hey, anyway, yeah, let's move on. We don't need to talk about violence. This is at our happy place. This is about 80s. This is our happy place. And somehow we ended up in the opening credits with a picture of an old time mail delivery truck. And I still don't know what that's about, but I threw it in anyway. So there you go. Because you know what? We're going to talk about things we missed from the 80s. And we're trying to keep it away from businesses. These are things that we miss. They may still exist, but they're not as prevalent. And man, we wish they were more common in this day and age. But Lou, this was your idea, so why don't you lead us off on this, brother?
Excellent. So everybody is very, very familiar with the iconic, and if we had a drink in our hand, we would go ahead and swallow the drink right now. But the iconic game of the 80s, the Rubik's Cube, right? Everybody's completely aware of that. One of the forgotten ones, though, was the follow-up that they had to the Rubik's Cube, which was it was called the Rubik's Missing Link. And it was this sort of rectangular looking thing, and it had this chain on all four sides, and you had to sort of move the little sliders and twist it so that you had all the same colored links and chains, and everything was built the same way. So that was something that I thought I would bring up because I'd forgotten about that until I started looking it up on the internet.
Did you ever own one?
I never owned one.
I remember trying it a few times, and much like the Rubik's Cube, it got incredibly frustrating for me. You see the videos of people doing that stuff behind their back, but why that didn't gain the same kind of popularity as a Rubik's Cube, I'll never know. But I will say, having played around with it a little bit, it was equally as frustrating.
The Rubik's Cube, I was good at actually solving it. I would just simply take it apart and then put it back together with the right order. But yeah, actually
You always
doing
told me you'd done it.
no, I've never ever done it. I think I got one side done, and I was very proud of myself for doing that. So that's as far as I ever got with that thing, the way you're supposed to do it.
I think I might have gotten two sides one time, and I, thought I won the lottery. So I don't remember how far I got with the links, but I think it was probably one of those things where I was trying it out at the store and just going, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy this and frustrate myself further. No, thank you. Well, Lewis alluded to it earlier, my physical size, and I noticed like a lot of stuff I had on the list was food items. So let's start with one of those. I to this day I still miss Carl's Jr. French fries. And yes, I know they still have French fries, they have them on their menu, but they really try to recreate what McDonald's was doing. Back in the 80s, they had these crinkle cut French fries, and they tasted like deep fried mashed potatoes. And they were friggin' delicious. And every now and then somebody will be like, oh, I found something. I was like, some people will remember it. Nancy used to work at Carl's Jr., so she remembers it vividly. I can't find anything that's ever matched that, and I can still taste it to this day. And I want Carl's Jr. so bad. Everything old is new again. Let's bring back those French fries, Carl's Jr. All right, for me, I'll be your biggest fan. You could increase your profit margin just selling them to me. And that's what I want. I want my Carl's Jr. fries back.
I was never a huge Carl's Jr. fan, so I don't remember the fries. I remember you telling me recently about the story where it was like, it was like mashed potatoes apparently for what Nancy was saying, and they just sort of put it in this mold and deep fried it, and voila, there you go.
So good. So good.
Very cool. Let's see. What do I have next on the list? Ah, yes, of course. I can't forget this one. This one was prevalent in the 70s as well, although it did trickle in into the 80s. And it's funny because a friend of mine, Lewis, actually, he posted a picture of the cover of this magazine, and it just came out of the blue yesterday, and I hadn't seen it in a while. And it's Dynamite Magazine, which you would be able to buy, through school. I know when we were like in elementary and middle school, you could buy it through, I think it was Scholastic Services or Scholastic something or other. And very teeny bopper magazine, but that would be what I would order almost every freaking time. And yeah, I wish I still had some issues of that. I lost all of them.
I'm actually surprised you don't. I remember I remember having those as well. It was the same thing for me. I'd order those all the time and find out these important, details of, celebrities and things like that. Thank God the Kardashians weren't around back then. But yeah, I remember Dynamite Magazine very fondly, and yes, I was an avid reader. Um, I'm gonna try and stay away from this whole thing being food. I think this also started out in the 70s, but for me, it was very prevalent in the 80s. And I don't know if you could. I'm gonna go with the very loosely on the things we miss from the 80s. I want to take that very loosely, that interpretation. I'm going with the King Biscuit Flour Hour.
Nice.
I remember there were so many fantastic shows, and I remember for a while it seemed like every show they had Ozzy Osbourne when Randy Rhoads was still in the band, and that was, I wish I had recorded some more of those. But I remember, UFO on there, and April Wine, and Pat Travers, and Ozzy Osbourne, and I actually have a couple of the King Biscuit Flour Hour albums, or CDs in my case. I think I have the April Wine one, and I have the UFO one. UFO was on the Mechanics tour, and that was still one of my all-time favorite recordings on the King Biscuit Flour Hour. And remember there, and you'd be like trying to start it just perfectly, and then oh my god, a commercial stop, and you'd be like, oh, it's back, and I got to start again. And they had some amazing performances, and I wish more of those recordings would come to light. I know they put out some of this stuff, but I think there was a lot of issue with really who owned the rights. Is it King Biscuit? Is it the artist? And I think that's why a lot of it didn't get released. But there were some amazing performances, and I really, really love to see more of those, be put out for the public to enjoy. So that's something I would love to see, come back, or something that I really miss from the 80s.
Very cool. Very cool. I used to love listening to the King Biscuit Flour Hour as well. One time I remember listening to it, and Dio was playing, and everybody knows I'm a huge Dio fan, so I was just ecstatic and rushed into my my junk drawer and pulled out some sort of a tape. I didn't even know what was on it. I didn't even care. It's just like, no, it's Dio, and slam it in there and record it. And I think I ended up taping over it accidentally. But yeah, that is very sad if it's stuck in legal discord. I've got to do that at least once an episode.
And I'm the
And that
Italian, so go figure.
the Portuguese do this as well.
Okay.
And yeah, it's sad because they had a lot of really great performances, and they really should be shared. Again, some of those things, as you were mentioning with Randy Rhoads and stuff, just absolute time capsules that you won't be able to get back.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, I think some of their earliest stuff was in a warehouse, and I don't know. I think this happened in the late 70s, where there was a fire in the warehouse where they kept these things. So a lot of recordings were actually lost too, which is even more tragic. But I'm so happy that the UFO one was a big one for me, because I remember my buddy at the time, Bill Guthrie, had recorded that, and we used to listen to that recording all the time. And that UFO recording was a big one for me. You get that one in April Wine, at least on CD. But man, there's so many other great performances. I'd love to have those.
Very cool. Yeah, great call out. Great call out. The next one I'm going to go to is again something I remember a lot in Burrell. I remember for whatever reason the girls seem to levitate towards having these on the tops of their pencils. It was those stupid little trolls with the like squirrely hair and stuff. You remember those, like the
Oh, I
different
remember them
colors?
well. The blue hair, yeah.
Yes, yes, and they're like these little naked little trolls, and it's like borderline obscene. And but everybody had them on the tops of their pencils. I don't know why they were so popular, but again, it is something that I had sort of forgotten about until I started doing a little bit
You
of
had to
research on the
do.
internet.
You did this, and the
Yes,
hair went
and there we
all
go.
over the place. Oh yeah, that good times. It's amazing this how stupid the stuff was. You know, you look at what kids have today to do, all this electronics and everything. We had this stupid thing on a pencil that we did this with it, and it entertained us for hours. So
Show your friends. Look,
yeah.
look. I'm gonna do it again. Look.
Let me straighten out the hair. Oh, and it's out. Yeah,
It's never the same twice. Look.
never really is. Never really is. That's funny. I actually forgot all about those, but now you remind. I'm sure you can find them somewhere.
I'm sure you
I
can too.
remember some of that stuff. Like my wife loved the Hello Kitty erasers in the '80s. Said you'd smell them all the time, and they had different scents to them. And she still remembers that smell vividly. Obviously, me being a male in the '80s, I don't remember Hello Kitty erasers, but I'll take her word for it. I'm going back to food.
Attaboy.
And there's a reason why I'm wearing this shirt. Yes, I miss Farrell's, but I'm going to go specifically to I miss the zoo. And for those of you that didn't grow up with the Farrell's, when you had a birthday party back in the day, they would give this humongous bowl of ice cream with all these different flavors in it. They throw it in, put in a bunch of whipped cream, probably some nuts, some probably hot syrup, hot fudge, whatever. And they put these plastic animals on it. And then to make it even better, they would go ahead and put it on like this stretcher that had a hole in it. So it'd sit on this little red stretcher, and all of a sudden the sirens would go off, and these employees one would be holding it in the front, one would be holding it in the back, and they'd run throughout the whole thing and do loops and everything. They'd come back to your table and they'd serve you, and you'd be in an ice cream coma for the next 20 days, and it was fantastic. Good times, great presentation. I do remember one time in San Mateo when we used to have the Farrells, noticing that there was some ice cream somebody had spilt on the floor. And it was like one of those things where all of a sudden everything just goes into slow motion. And I see the guy running around and he hits that ice cream, and there goes his feet, and they're up. And then the other guy goes with him, and it's just one of those things like slow motion, all this ice cream and thunk, just right in the middle of the floor. So luckily they were unharmed. It was pretty funny. Back in those days, you didn't think anyone got hurt falling. You just thought it was hysterical, and you laughed at it. And you saw a lot of ice cream end up on the floor. So a little sad in that regard, but very funny, and a memory I will never forget.
So let me ask you this, John. Did you actually yourself ever celebrate your birthday at Farrell's?
Oh, a bunch of
Yeah.
times. And I actually had my first date ever at Farrell's.
Wow.
Yeah, so my first date was like in 5th or 6th grade. And I was so stupid. I had like 3 potential girls that I wanted to ask for my first date, and I kind of like quizzed them and made it a competition, like it was a game show or something, and chose one. Yeah, like lucky me, I could afford to be choosy. And chose one, and my dad drove us, and we went to Farrell's and each had an ice cream sundae, and that was my first date ever, like 5th or 6th grade.
Wow. Wow. Very cool. Yeah, I only had one birthday at Farrell's, and it was actually over in your neck of the woods when they actually re-resurrected resurrected ferals in LA. And I can't remember what the name of the park was. It was
Mount Asia.
Mount Asia, that's what it was. And yeah, I was like 34 or 35, and that was the first time. That was the only time that I actually had a birthday celebration in ferals.
And you didn't have the zoo though, right?
I didn't have the zoo.
I don't even remember when they did it, if they had the zoo there or not. It was very short lived, sadly. It was nice to see them try and bring it back. And I think it was the last one existed in existence. And as far as I know, there's not a Farrell's ice cream that is still around anymore. So kind of went the way of the dodo bird, but I'll never forget the zoo and having my birthday parties there. And oh man, like I said, ice cream coma for days. It was the best.
Very cool. Awesome. The next one I'm going to go with is staying still on the same vein of like toys and little trinkets. And I'm sure you probably remember these from middle school. There were Weeples, and there were these little yarn.
You don't fall down.
Not Weebles, Weeples.
Oh.
And yeah, there were these.
Edit that later.
They were these little almost like puff balls, right? And they glued these two googly eyes to them. They had feet, and some of them had a hat, and you stuck them to the wall, right? It was like a sticker. The feet were stickers, and you'd stick them to the wall or stick them wherever. And I became familiar with them because of the magazine drives that they did in middle school. And I remember like selling like 5 magazine subscriptions, like, oh man, that was awesome. I just, I kicked butt and okay, let's see what I can get for a prize. And they gave me 3 of these stupid Weeples, right? And they must have cost like 15 cents to make a piece at the most. And
yeah, I'd say that's generous.
So but yeah, it was something that I remember. I actually had this really rinky-dink keyboard that a musical keyboard that I stuck one to, and it stayed on there for years until it and the keyboard died.
Well, I remember those too, and yeah, you got them for school. I think they would also hand them out as, like if you had good grades or something, some teachers would give those out. I don't remember mine ever having a top hat though, so I guess I was not that good of a student, or didn't sell enough subscriptions, because I always got the plain ones. They never could afford the accessories. Who knew? Well, I'm going to go kind of your route now, and I'm going to talk about something that I really loved in the 80s, and it's not food related. My God, what a shock. Shrinky dinks.
Nice. Excellent.
Shrinky dinks. So for those that aren't familiar or forgotten what Shrinky dinks were, you had these plastic films, and you would color. They had different cutouts, or different designs, and you would cut them out, like Christmas trees, things like that, beach balls, whatever they had, and then you'd color them. And then when you were done coloring them, you'd put them in the oven, and you'd put them in the oven for a little bit, and they would harden, and they'd be, typically we'd use them for putting on our Christmas tree. Yeah, I used to love Shrinky dinks, and again, it goes back to the stuff that amused us, that we had, that was just life changing for us. Sitting around doing Shrinky dinks, putting them in the oven, getting them out. And then you'd have to make sure you put that hole in it, so when it came out, that you'd put some string through it to tie it to the tree. And love Shrinky dinks, and the simpler pleasures of life. And I don't know if they still exist. I'm sure you probably find them somewhere, but man, I haven't seen them in years.
I remember seeing something on the internet where you could make a Shrinky dink out of like a household item. It was on YouTube or something. And I didn't get to do those as much as I would have liked. I had a friend of mine, I remember I went over his house and they were doing that, and they let me do one. I think I drew up a little car or something. And exactly what you said, you have to remember to poke the hole in there if you want to, use it as a pendant or whatever it was that we used it for them for it, at that age. But very fascinating, right? Because it starts off almost like what looks like a piece of paper, and then you put it in there, and it's like comes out with this little hardened piece of glass, almost clear plastic. Very cool.
Yeah, those were the days, Lewis. It was a simpler time, a gentler time. It was the 80s.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's see what I have here next on my list.
I think this is the last one, right?
What's that? This might be my last one.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, all right, I'm going to stick with this theme of school here, and we all obviously had binders that we used, in school, and there were different brands that they were trying to sell us. And I remember one, and I think it was made by a company called Mead, that was called the Trapper Keeper. And
You
I
start going
remember.
with that, that's the first thing that came into my head. It was either Peachy or Trapper Keeper.
So I think I might have actually had one, but I remember them pushing that so hard on television, and just lots and lots of media, the Trapper Keeper, and then it had all these little compartments, and you could go ahead and snap the binder shut, because I had this whole flap that would go over and it would snap it shut, so you wouldn't have everything fly all over the place if you dropped it. So I had, again, with my research, that's what I found, and it was something that I'd forgotten about.
Well, since you didn't hit this one, and I'm shocked that you didn't hit this one, I might as well go with it because it's probably the most iconic vehicle of the 80s, the DeLorean.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm so shocked you didn't. I figured for sure. I was like, I didn't even, I didn't want to talk about it because I figured I'd step on you. And I still want one. I still want one. Somebody I know, like, had a friend that got a red one, and I've never seen a red DeLorean. And apparently, they made red DeLoreans, and I would love a red DeLorean because you know me and my love of red cars. I want a red DeLorean. So my birthday is coming up soon, people. So if anyone wants to send me a red DeLorean, I'll give you my shipping address. Ship one to me, and it doesn't have to run. I'll pay to get it to run, but I want a red DeLorean. But yeah, I love those cars. I know it just screams 80s. And it's funny now because all these high-end cars open with those doors similar to what the DeLorean did. So it was really ahead of its time. It was responsible for time travel.
There is that.
88, it would time travel. Um, so um, yeah, I just love the car. And we actually went to school with somebody. God, I forgot his name. I played basketball with him. I don't know if he went to. I want to say he was like a grade older than us, or maybe he was just part of a basketball team in middle school that I played on a team with. Because I remember us practicing or maybe having a game at Burrell. So I don't know if we went to school with him or I just played on it was like a little league basketball team. And his father had a DeLorean, and he came and picked him up, and I just wanted to go for a ride in it, and never got to, and I still have never gone for a ride in it. I've sat in one, I've sat in several, but never gone for a ride, and I want a red DeLorean, and I want them back.
I didn't know that they actually painted them. I thought they all came with the sort of the stainless steel, finish. I have seen them painted though. I remember seeing a yellow one, and yeah, they're cool looking cars, man.
The thing is, from what I understand, is they actually came from the DeLorean factory in red.
Hmm.
So I think that's the only color they did, other than the stainless steel look. But so yeah, that actually was from the factory like that. It wasn't something that anybody did aftermarket. From the best of my understanding, the little bit I researched on it. But yeah, I'm surprised. I would have thought you would have loved to have owned a DeLorean.
I always thought that the looks of a DeLorean were pretty cool. There's something about the front end that I didn't dig too much. I didn't like the fact that it came with a Volvo engine. It's just like you've got this car that's this very sleek, and it looks like it's really high performance and amazing, and it's got a little Volvo engine in it. I didn't dig that part of it, but it is a cool looking car, and again, very very representative of the 80s, very iconic.
Oh, tell me you wouldn't love to cruise around town in one of those with a personalized license plate that says 80s Lou, bumping some poison or something. The doors open, everyone's like, who's that? And they see, our old selves get out, and then they're immediately disappointed. That would be cool. That would be so cool.
Yes, that would rock.
All right. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Is there anything we missed?
Um, there's a lot that we missed, right? But yeah,
Sure.
car bras. Everybody in the 80s had a car bra. They wanted to have a car bra. You don't remember that? I wanted to
I
have a car bra.
remember it. I just never wanted one. Even when I had my Mustang GT, I never wanted one.
Yeah, I wanted one for my Camaro. I wanted one badly, and I even wanted one for my Monte Carlo, but it was a quick fad that faded. But there's my little slip in,
That was
with an
like the
extra one.
spinners, of the 80s.
Yes.
The spinners, you had car bras. Yeah, I never understood that. It just seems so dumb. And I couldn't even, admit to going to a place and saying, yeah, I want a car bra.
It keeps the front from sagging. It brings it up and makes it nice and perky.
Yeah. All right. I didn't know metal sag. I'm gonna throw one out at you. I had it on my list. It was in my top five, and like I said, I thought for sure you were gonna cover the DeLorean. Do you remember Rondo soda?
Oh my God. Yes, I remember Rondo soda.
I don't know what happened to it. For those that don't know, Rondo soda was a citrus soda. It's kind of like a Seven Up or a Sprite, but it seemed to have like more of a kick. And I remember it had like a yellow and green can. And I remember the first time I saw it, I think I was at a Stanford college football game. And one of my friends, we went with his father. One of my friends started drinking it. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, what do you mean? I said, you can't drink beer. He goes, it's Rondo. It's not a, and I thought, based upon the appearance of the can and everything, I thought for sure this was an alcoholic beverage. It's kind of like the White Claw of today or whatever. So I was like, really? He says, you never had Rondo? I said, no. He goes, oh, well, we got extras in the cooler. You want one? I said, yeah, I'll try it. And it was fantastic. I loved Rondo soda. I've looked for it, you still have some of those retro stores where you can find all these weird sodas. I've gone to them, asked them if they have Rondo soda. Most of the time I'm looked at like a, dog that's been shown a card trick, and they're like, have no clue as to the brilliance of Rondo soda. I believe there was a company in Canada that was making it. I don't know if they still make it, but it wasn't called Rondo. It had a different name, but it was supposed to be the same recipe and the same type of flavor. So I've always been tempted to try and order it and see if it, if it made me remember what I recall the taste to be like. But yeah, I do miss some Rondo soda, and I'm glad you remember it because not a lot of people do.
I'm glad that you slipped that one in, man, because that was one that just came from left field. I haven't heard of Rondo in forever. So yeah, no, I'm really glad that you brought that one up. Really good one to tie up the show with.
Did you've had it? You enjoyed it, right?
I thought it was okay. I remember it being citrusy. It sort of reminding me a little bit of either Fresca or Squirt. I can't remember. It's sort of like that.
No, see, I didn't think it tasted. Like I said, I thought it was like a Seven Up or a Sprite with more of a kick. I hate Fresca, so I know it couldn't taste like Fresca. What was the other one you said?
Squirt.
Squirt. I don't think I've ever had a squirt in my life.
It's like very citrusy. It's almost like grapefruity.
It definitely didn't remind me of a Fresca. I thought Frescas were disgusting.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
Fresca's still around? Squirt?
I don't know. I don't know if
Hello,
either one of those.
yellow. We're going a rabbit hole of old sodas. Crystal Pepsi.
Yes, I remember Crystal
New
Pepsi
Coke.
and the new Coke. Yep.
Yeah. So, I wish I'm gonna do some more research. I'm gonna find Rondo soda, and if I have to import it from Canada, I think I'll do it. So probably cost me like $200 to get a six pack, and it's gonna be a hard one to explain to my wife, but she's gonna understand my love for everything nostalgia and everything 80s. So deal with it. All right,
Good
Lou.
deal.
You think we've covered this enough?
I think we've beat this one down.
All right, well, good. It was a good beatdown, and why don't you go ahead and sign us off, brother?
Peace out, everybody.
Thank you, guys.